make the best content possible for your SaaS brand by focusing on selling the solution and not just the software. If you have any questions along the way, drop them in the chat. There's a Q&A function in the top right of your screen. We'll also be doing a couple of polls along the way, so feel free to vote in them as we're talking. And yeah, please do participate as much as you'd like. So to start off, I just want to give you a quick introduction to us. So Tug is a digital performance agency. If you're not familiar with us, we've got 12 years of SaaS expertise with these great clients that you can see on the left of your screen there. And my name is Emily Knox. I'm the head of social and content at Tug. I've been at Tug for 4 years now, and I have around 11 years experience working with B2B brands, but also a lot of B2C brands, creating content and strategy for social media, SEO and web. So we know from working with B2B marketers that they are so passionate about what they do. They're excited about the potential of their software for SaaS marketers, but this can be a really good and a really bad thing. Because their audiences aren't always as invested as they are. So for example, we know that 40% of small business owners just find tech to be a distracting headache from their main tasks. Even at larger enterprises, IT leaders say managing tech is more difficult than ever. So we're dropping a poll into the Hangout now, I think. So head over there. We'd love to hear from you about who your target audiences are. Are they SMEs? Are they larger enterprises, or a mix? And taking into account the wider context at the moment as well, which we can't overlook. What a year that we've had. There are so many reasons that businesses are finding it harder to sell to other businesses. The disruption of the pandemic means that many are only just keeping up with their day-to-day tasks. We know from research that salespeople are finding it harder and harder to upsell and retain clients. And we just know, I know from personal experience, that everyone is generally fed up. We know that younger workers, millennials, are struggling with long hours and that bleeding of work-life balance, of life into work life into social life, such as it is at the moment. And older workers are feeling stressed from lack of holidays and breaks. And all that means that to cut through right now as a B2B marketer, you need to solve a problem your customer is having immediately. So to look at SMEs and large enterprise, again, I think for SMEs, that often means assisting with urgent pain points, so time saving or reducing human error. For large businesses, we know that in recent years, the focus on IT procurement has changed. Where it once was a focus solely on risk and price, there's now much bigger picture considerations to take into account, and they are generally, how are you going to contribute to revenue, innovation, and customer retention? So taking all of this into account, why are we still seeing SaaS ads? And I've taken social media ads as my example here. Why are we still seeing Facebook ads that look like this? And I found these two really quickly by just searching software in the Facebook ads library. So these are two ads that are just live at the moment, or when I was putting this together. As I say, I'm focusing on social media content. It's really hard. It's really easy to find, but most of these points that I'm talking about could apply to any digital content. So what's going on in these ads? They list out numerous product features. It's great that this software has lots of features, but you don't have to list out everyone in every single ad. There's just too much text in them for a fast-moving news feed. We talk about the tyranny of the thumb. People are just not going to read a paragraph about your product. They're using up lots of precious real estate with static images rather than moving image. And these images, these creative assets, look like ads or brochures rather than social content. And we know banner blindness is a thing. It's been a thing for over a decade. And users just switch off if you serve them ads in a social newsfeed. But don't just take our word for this. As I was putting this together, this research came out, it was in the last couple of weeks, from the LinkedIn B2B Institute and System 1. And they've looked at 1,600 ads over the last 4 years that have had 6 million views. So quite a big data set. And they found that only 1 in 4 of those ads that they looked at scored more than 1 out of a possible 5 stars for quality of creative. And when your creative is poor, all you have to rely on is outspending your competitors to speak louder than they are. And I think what's interesting is looking at why do B2B ads tend to be lower on the creative scale. And one of the reasons is B2C firms are usually marketing led, but B2B is driven by product or engineering or sales. And these are all rational people. And when they see poor results from poor creative, it only reinforces their rational view that creativity is not worth the investment. And in case you were wondering what that 5-star marking system was, LinkedIn and System 1 have based it on these 5 hallmarks, which I certainly would broadly agree with. So to be a great piece of creative, hopefully you'll tick all 5 of these boxes. Number 1, some sort of a narrative or a story arc. Number 2, they say characters. I think what they mean is, some sort of relatability, some personality that you can relate to in a human way. Next, music or voiceover. I think in the social space, this is really interesting. I think news feeds 5 years ago were silent. You had to make everything for sound off. Now with the predominance of first Snapchat, then Instagram stories, now TikTok and Reels, sound is really coming back to social, whether it's in the news feed or in other formats like stories. Next, emotion. Trigger some sort of a feeling, rather than just appealing to that reason with your list of product features. And lastly, a recognizable brand device. So that might be a really strong visual tone of voice or look and feel. So if you think back to those 2 Facebook ads that I just found at random, they don't really tick any of these boxes. So how do you make 5-star B2B creative for your SaaS brand? First of all, I think you need to know your audience. We often think of IT decision makers being some old guy in a corner office. But the evidence is pointing to the fact that millennials are increasingly involved in procurement decision making. Now that they're reaching senior positions, older millennials are reaching their 40s now, and also due to the fact that they are tech savvy, so more senior people will often rely on their input. I believe there's another poll going in the chat about your target audiences at the moment, so please have a vote in that. So again, there's been a recent study about this, and it's a big study of 34,000 B2B marketers, and I believe it was across 10 markets, so it's a big study. And they found that not only are millennials, comfortable with tech, but there's other traits they have too. One is they're self-improvers. They consider themselves a work in progress, and they're always adding new strings to their bow. They're also, this study called them activists, but what that means is they're likely to be socially and ecologically aware, probably more so than older generations, and they align themselves with brands that they see as having a positive purpose. And they have certain behaviors as well. Some of these I think are somewhat surprising. One is they're more likely to trust and buy from brands that they've heard of before, so familiarity is really important. They consider themselves trendsetters, but on the other side of the coin, they're worried about being left behind the trend. So quite often they can be trend followers, but they like to see themselves at the forefront of trends. They don't want to be left behind. And I think part of that is they're very interested in what competitors are doing. So if they, much more than older generations, if they know a competitor is using a product, they're going to be much more interested in buying that product. That's right, Kingy. Alongside all these insights, I think don't lose sight of the channels that you are using. So in this case, I'm looking at social media. Your content needs to fit into news feeds, and as I say, they're moving really quickly. They're also full of genuinely interesting stuff. So if you've got content that isn't visually exciting or looks like an ad, it's just not going to work in this environment where you're sitting alongside social posts from your friends and news stories, although not in my homeland of Australia as of today. I'm sure you've all read the news this morning that Zuckerberg's cut off news on Facebook from this morning in Australia. But there is still a bunch of interesting stuff on there. So just creating ads that don't look like social content's not going to work. Moving image can help to grab attention over a static image, but even then, you've got 3 seconds to hook your audience with something interesting. A good way to do that is to use some sort of emotion to connect. And now I want to look at some great examples of B2B brands who I think are doing a really good job. So here are a couple which I think show that you can put emotion and just a boundless creativity and make genuinely interesting content for SaaS and B2B brands. So this first one that's playing now, MailChimp's really recently partnered with the creatives at It's Nice That on this sort of stop motion animation series, all about the highs and lows of work, appealing to people who work in a startup, small business people, entrepreneurs, as well as people who work in bigger organizations. It looks beautiful. It sparks a connection via an emotional understanding of the audience. Another really interesting campaign I worked on, which was more factually led, but also was all about the emotions of business, was for O2 Business. We wanted to get through to small business people. So we created a podcast about the pain and passion of turning a side hustle into a 9-to-5. That was called Start Me Up. So again, both of these campaigns are proof that B2B and SaaS marketing can encompass some really truly great content streams, which can be destinations rather than just content. Next, I want to look, I've just had a review of a few SaaS brands who I think are doing really well. And the first one is Monday.com. They've got a great social presence and content presence. So you can see the first images from their Instagram, and they do quite a good job of visualizing hard to visualize customer pain points. So this one is an email chain. You can see the monthly campaigns. That's a great example of connecting with consumers on a topic which makes everyone groan internally, and which that product can solve. I find their creative is quite playful. They play with their language. So the social ad, which again I found on the Facebook ad library, is something running at the moment. They've got a fun line in it that references back to the future. They certainly don't rely on lists of product features in their advertising, and it's all done in a really distinctive style. It's an instantly recognizable brand device, which we know is one of those 5 pillars of great creative. You know who's talking when you see a Monday.com ad. They're also clever on their review management. So you can see they go back to Trustpilot posts, which makes them look really attentive as a brand. And I think that's clever because we know millennials are doing a lot of research before they purchase any product. And they do some really fun stuff. The last video is from a key opinion leader in their company called Joel, who just dreams up these automated solutions to customer problems. So this video is a really fun piece where he talks about how he created a TLDR, which is a too long didn't read app, which summarizes long emails into 3 words. So some of it is a little bit fanciful, but it's all about connecting with consumers about their actual pain points in a creative way. Next, Sage, I think they do a great job. They really focus on the emotions associated with being a small business owner. They're doing some really interesting stuff on TikTok. I definitely recommend that you head over to TikTok. They've got a TikTok challenge. It's the first I've ever seen from a B2B brand. It's called #BossIt2021, and they ask people to show their goals for the year. They've engaged lots of influencers, and the content quality is really high. They're a brand which champions education as well. So they've got lots of events and webinars. They tap into that millennial self-improvement trend. They hero their users and generate advocacy from the ground up, which again, advocacy is really important for garnering millennial interest. And they and their team speak with purpose about supporting people and organizations to help them thrive. Again, we know that's an important driver for millennials. Next is a Tug client called Spendesk. They're a French spend management software. And and their content's been really successful. You can see in the first image, they use real people in their advertising. They bring the real solutions that they provide to life. I really like their recent dinosaur campaign, which taps into that millennial anxiety about being left behind. And it works across all touch points from out of home to social. They do some really great brand partnerships as well. So they recently partnered with an entrepreneurial brand called Product Hunt, which raises their profile in a really targeted way. And they do that quite strategically and well to connect with that millennial audience that they're going after. And lastly, I just want to show you some real numbers. This is a real example with real data from a client of ours called Bluebeam, who creates software for the construction industry. You know, maybe not the most obviously emotional thing to talk about on social or digital media, but they switch their creative from the left to the right. So from an abstract consumer benefit to being solutions focused, putting humanity and emotion and relatability more front and center with that, with the creative of that woman's face. And you can see their conversion rate immediately went up well over 300% as they switched from creative A to creative B. So this stuff really can work and have a real business effect. So in summary, I would say focus on these 4 pillars to elevate your SaaS marketing. Number 1, focus on solving real and pressing customer pain points. Demonstrate how you can grow your customer's business as well. So how you're going to increase revenue, innovation, retention. Focus on selling features which appeal to millennials. So that might be cutting edge tech or positive brand purpose, and understand that millennial behaviors. So awareness is important due to their willingness to trust familiar brands. So top of funnel marketing, don't discount that. They are interested in what their competitors are doing. So if big companies are using your software, put those logos on your collateral. And we do have time for a few questions, and there's another poll just gone into the chat now. So if you want to chat more about SaaS and B2B, please do get in touch. You can see my contact details are on here and the agency contact details as well.